All right, here. We're going to try this on YouTube. YouTube has been extraordinarily uncooperative lately with volume and being able to hear things, and I don't know what the problem is. So we are recording in a variety of areas. Let me just get our next piece up and going here. All right, it looks like we've got volume there. And let's make that go. So we are in all of the places and all of the things. Okay, hello. I am Amy Elizabeth. There we go. We're getting it here. We're getting it. One more place. All right. Hello. I'm Amy Elizabeth. If you're following me on YouTube, if you're here with me on YouTube, you're on AE Body Alchemy's channel. If you're joining me on Substack, this is Shamanism, Somatics, and the Stars. And the thing I wanted to touch in on today is this spring 2025 eclipse peduncle that we are in, and some just basic, like, the divine law of a rising tide lifts all ships. Now, I am in the US, and what I have with me today is the US birth chart. Because our energetics matter so much right now. I've been studying the US birth chart for a while, not necessarily as long as I've been studying astrology. I am using the chart from July 4th, 1776 at 5:10 p.m., Philadelphia. So what is commonly known as the Sibley chart. And there's just so much going on right now. This eclipses conceal, they never reveal, they hide the things. They also dredge up, and they're like, my Minnesota is going to show, they're an auger. There's something that drills down, and as that auger spins, it pulls things up to the surface. And just because it's pulling things up to the surface doesn't mean we can actually, that we're ready to see what's going on. Part of what is happening is this eclipse season, the eclipse we just had, it peaked at 1:54 a.m. on March 14th here in the central time zone in the US. So adjust for your location on the earth. It happened at 23 degrees south node in Virgo. So it was this like releasing of the details. The thing that really is catching me about it is that Neptune, that is native to the chart of the United States as a country, is at 22 degrees Virgo, which means that this eclipse had the moon, the emotions, the people conjunct Neptune. And now I did a YouTube live, that's what we'll call YouTube live, about Neptune and how Neptune is this high androgynous shamanic energy. It is the full integration of both our masculine principle and our feminine principle coming together into a single androgynous shamanic being. That's Neptune's highest potential. So it's interesting to me that in the chart of the United States, Neptune sits in the house of the highest potential. And people can look at the 10th house and get really focused in on our very, what do we produce? What do we make? What is our job as our highest potential? And I just want to broaden the lens that our highest potential is not what we do. It is not what we produce. It's not how we contribute to a capitalistic system. Our highest potential is the integration and the embodiment of divine laws, like a rising tide lifts all ships. And I'm going with a rising tide lifts all ships because I'm seeing so many people in my practice with rising anxiety over what happens. The more we can breathe into our bodies, the more we can slow down. Remember, Virgo is sitting in the 10th house. The moon is we the people, at least in a country's birth chart. In a personal birth chart, these are different things. In a country's birth chart, the moon is we the people. We the people were conjunct Neptune. Meanwhile, Saturn was sitting in a combustion with the sun. Now, what the combustion means is that the day before the eclipse, which was Friday, the sun and Saturn went cazimi. So Saturn entered the heart of the sun, and there was real clarity around structures, around our resilience, around our discipline. And then the day of the eclipse, by the time the eclipse happened, Saturn was in a combust position. Now, combustion is a state of confusion that is the flip side of the coin of a cazimi. The cazimi is this point of really deep clarity, and combustion is this time of turbulence and confusion. And an eclipse conceals, it doesn't reveal. Now, the combust Saturn is sitting in Pisces, and Saturn as a planetary archetype it describes the structure of the universe, and it describes the structure of time. Saturn is called the Lord of Time. He's Lord Kronos. And the structure of time we've been really existing in is linear time, when really time is a 360-degree reality. I'm going to go with reality because that's how I experience time. And once you start to work in the energy realms, you recognize time as a 360-degree experience. Saturn in Pisces embodies Odin's journey. Scandinavian, when I am not sitting in my Ukrainian roots. Odin's journey is about how we apply discipline, how we apply Saturn to self-dissipation or self-unraveling, which would be Pisces, because Pisces is the journey from separation to divine union. So self-dissipation, the unraveling of ourself. Saturn in Pisces is the application of discipline to self-unraveling or self-dissipation. And with Saturn combust, what we're seeing is what people keep screaming about as the breakdown of a family structure, of our roots. And for anybody who functions in a more shamanic, earth-bound way, the breakdown of roots is not necessarily a bad thing. It is the return of those nutrients. It's the return of that structure to the microbiome, to the mycelium, to be able to create space for the birth of something new. And self-dissipation is not necessarily a bad thing. How do we, in this eclipse, there are just two dogs wildly running down the street. In this eclipse peduncle space, how do we clean up our past? Whether cleaning up that past be from a level of the country, our community, our family, or our personal level? Where is our past that needs to be cleaned up, let go, released? We can also ask ourselves with the South Node eclipse, where do we get afraid? What are we afraid of? Because our fear makes us small. Are we afraid of other people? Are we afraid of those people having rights? Are we afraid of us, ourselves, we ourselves not having enough? And what truthfully is enough? How do we shift to a system where we meet in the heart rather than from a this is mine and this is mine and this is mine and this is mine? From that second house piece, if we look at the US chart of tribalism, Capricorn is a sign of tribalism. Um, and moving from a growth mindset, and a growth mindset is about self-awareness. Growth mindsets connect us to others, because to be connected to others, we have to have a growth mindset. We have to be willing to say, well, I don't know everything, and this other person could shift how I show up in the world, could change myself. So when we can when we as individuals disconnect from our own feelings, we are then unable to connect to others. So really be paying attention right now to the people around us and how we're going to be really easily able to feel how energetically open they are and how well established their growth mindset is, how well established their interest in the highest potential is, how interested they are in the idea that a rising tide lifts all ship, that divinity is law, and that law isn't something made by humans. You know, when we look at the alchemy of Saturn and Neptune being together, or Saturn and Neptune being opposite of each other as they were with the eclipse on the 14th of March, we're dealing with this Neptune who is the sameness of everything, right? There we have Neptune in the 10th house of the United States, the sameness of everything, that we are all one, another divine law. And we have Saturn, who is this in the fourth house in of the United States Church, is this perpetuation of ingrained normal. And that energy is all of this Piscean energy is about to change. All of this fake news, who do we believe, what are the lies, the deception and confusion that is Neptune and Pisces is going to switch. Before we get there, let's just touch in on March 29th, which is the birthing point out of this eclipse peduncle. Right now, we're all feeling squeezed, whether we want to or are able to recognize the energetic reality of being in the peduncle, of being the squeeze. Peduncle, for those that are new to me, the peduncle is the portion of the funnel, the skinny part of the funnel. You've got your big part of the funnel and it goes down. Peduncle is the skinny part that everything feeds through. It's where you squeeze it. And that's what we're in. That's what happens energetically when we move from one eclipse point to the next eclipse point. The eclipse on March 29th, 2025 peaks at 5:57 a.m. It's going to be at 8 degrees Aries. This eclipse is a closing eclipse. And of course, with every closing, there's an opening. That is how the cycle works. So the eclipse that's happening on March 29th closes out 2 years of energetics and opens us into a fresh 2 years of fresh energetics. It's also the astrological new year, which happens with the Aries dark moon. And after the spring equinox. So for those of you in Minneapolis, you should come hang out with me on the 29th as we workshop that day. Some of the interesting astrological pieces for me that I am paying attention to with the March 29th eclipse and why it feels like such an important time to gather and to have a workshop and to do the things, to be in the energy, is because that eclipse is exactly square the native heiress in the US chart, who is in Capricorn, second house. It's an exact square. There's this cardinal starter energy. And Eris is the goddess of chaos. She is the goddess who throws an apple into a party that's labeled to the fairest of them all and starts this major battle on Olympus, which triggers the Trojan War. Venus, who is still retrograde, is going to be 28 degrees of Pisces. She is going to be within a degree conjunction of Neptune. She's a couple degrees away from the North Node and 4 degrees away from Saturn. All of these are in Pisces. All of these are in this breakdown. And Neptune is at the anaretic degree. He's at the master degree. We're dealing with the mastery of Neptune in his home sign. Neptune in Pisces is the ability to embrace the all, the ability to recognize that the matter that separates us, the physical matter that separates us, is an illusion. Because what is real and true is the energetics. Venus is retrograding. She's retrograding through the same place she retrograded 8 years ago in 17, and 8 years prior to that, and 8 years prior to that, and 8 years prior than that. So those born in 77 to early 78, you are all in a Venus cycle return. You're in a Venus star point return, which is big energy. And if we look at what are the themes that we have dealt with every 8 years, we can kind of figure out how to navigate this. Venus is in her exaltation in Pisces. The North Node is just settling in Pisces. This North Node of beckoning us towards the disillusion of the boundaries that say, oh, well, that person is different than me because of their gender identity, their race, their religious beliefs, their country. Like, we're all just people. We're all just doing our best. This eclipse is also sextile Uranus, who is the 7th house. Uranus is the rebel. Uranus is also the king killer, and I have been holding on to that so hard. Sextile is a creative aspect. So how is the North Node going to create with Uranus? How are you going to, moving into the new year, create with Uranus? How are you going to bring your rebel energy to protect the whole rather than to protect the few? Jupiter in Gemini is also conjunct Persephone. So there is this piece on our one-on-one relationships and expanding our one-on-one relationships by being willing to take an underworld journey. Now, Jupiter is in his fallen Gemini. He has a rough time. Jupiter will be moving into Cancer, where he's in his exaltation. We have to wait for that to happen. Just hold it. It's coming. It is something that astrologers are all watching to wait to see what's going to happen, is this expansion in the US chart of recognizing the best and the highest and loving others, because it's Cancer, the willingness to nourish others. And then the other piece I wanted to mention about the eclipse on the 29th is that Black Moon Lilith enters Scorpio that same period, which is our 12th house. And Black Moon Lilith is this conglomeration. She is the apogee of the moon. She is the furthest point on the moon's ecliptic from Earth. So she's the things we keep hidden. And Black Moon Lilith entering Scorpio, which is the 12th house of the US, feels like this really, really amazing unraveling and revelation, and this bringing to light the things that are hidden. And I want to just keep us focused on the bringing to light the things that are hidden really, really matters right now. Because we're going to go back to that question I asked earlier, where do I get afraid? And where do I get afraid? It allows us and encourages us to clean up our past. And as Neptune moves into Aries, day after the eclipse on the 30th, we are moving into this new era of space and time. There is this, in its highest, really shamanic present. In its lowest, this is addiction and delusion. And, one of my favorite stories to kind of recognize the lowest part of Neptune is when Athens, what wasn't Athens at the time, but when Athens was searching for their patron, excuse me, and they, both Athena and Neptune, applied for the job of the patron of Athens. And Neptune created this beautiful, amazing saltwater spring to impress the people of Athens with how he was going to provide for them and take care of them. Athena brought them the olive tree. Now, Athena's origins date back to Libya 6,000 years ago. Athena is much older than the Greco-Roman warrior goddess version of her that most people pay attention to. And Athena brought them the olive tree. She brought them the cultivated olive tree. And that was her gift to the people of Athens, something that provided wood for their homes and food for their tables. And so, of course, Athens chose Athena. She brought them an option that nourished. Now, Neptune lost his mind, had an absolute fit, and created a flood to destroy Athens. Now, those that were sitting up on Olympus watching this all go down did what we've watched happen for too long, which was sit and work to pacify this male who was having a hissy fit. And the way that they pacified him was by denying all women in Athena their citizenship, by denying them the right to vote, and by denying them the practice of carrying down the matriarchal lineage through the surname of the children. And you may or may not see some things that are going on that look a little similar. So, how do we stand up against this lowest, nastiest form of Neptune that is throwing a hissy fit because it doesn't get its way, and recognize that it's moving into a new start? Because the 0 degree point of Aries is a new start. It's why, for people who live shamanic lifestyles, it is the start of a new year. It is why the 0 degrees of Aries is this ignition point. It's the start of, if you're going to medicine, walk through the astrological wheel. Aries is an ignition point. It's cardinal fire. It is the start of transformation. So my invitation as we're in this squeeze is to really pay attention to the energy. Look at the things you're afraid of. Take those things into your heart. What has happened in your past to create fear of those things or fear of those people? Are you right to be afraid of those things? Are those things threatening the rights and existence of those you love? I invite your questions, comments, dedications, and requests. I am super excited to be on Substack. I am hoping the YouTube video worked. If the YouTube video didn't work, then I'll figure out a way to repost this on my YouTube. For those that are in the Minneapolis area, the workshop is March 29th. Registration ends on March 26th at midnight. There are still some spots left. Reach out. I would love to have you.